Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. My name is Jackson Mumey, and each week we'll be bringing you updated information about the bar exam and what you need to do in order to make the next bar exam your last bar exam. Ready to get started? Let's jump to it. Hey everybody, welcome. It is Wednesday, November 2nd, and we are back. And June is here with me. Hey June, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I can't believe it's November, and we are now counting down to the February exam. We're still waiting on California results out of the July 2022 exam. So we're looking back and we're looking forward all at the same time. That's pretty crazy, isn't it? And we have not done one of these Q&As for a couple of weeks. So I have a boatload of questions to get through, and I'm excited to do that. And we've got some announcements and things to discuss as well. A couple of other quick announcements. If you have not seen it yet, we've just added something that we're calling Virtual Bootcamp. As June and I just did a Bootcamp live in celebration last month, and it was a huge success. And we recorded some of it, but we put together a whole set of resources, the slide decks, the extra materials that we use in Bootcamp. And we got a lot of requests from people saying, look, couldn't you do this virtually? Do we have to come live? And there's certainly a huge value to being there live, no doubt about that. But we did have a lot of resources from Bootcamp, and we wanted to make them available. So we created a course called the Virtual Bootcamp course. And the course is available for $800. It gives you permanent access to all of those resources, plus it includes the full photo reading course. Now, if you're already a photo reader, one of the great things here is that you can take a discount of $400 off the Virtual Bootcamp course, and then just contact us and ask for the coupon code. If you're a photo reader, we'll take $400 off. So your virtual bootcamp is $400. And it's just got all kinds of resources, and we're going to continue to add to those resources. So I encourage you to check that out. If you're thinking about photo reading, this is the best way to do it, because it's photo reading plus all of the work that we did on photo reading for essay writing, for multiple choice, for performance tests, and a lot more. So I hope you'll check that out and give it a look, and I think you'll like it. Two other quick announcements. The first is that we just got to release the UBE and MPT work from July 2022 from the bar examiners. They've now released that so that we can now talk about it and put it out there. If you're in the UBE course, the July 2022 essays are now available as part of the digital book. It's MEE Essay Book 3. And you'll find it in your online course under the digital library. The MPT book is coming. We should have that by the end of the week. That will be for all jurisdictions that use the multi-state performance test. So we'll have those questions along with the drafter point sheets, and we encourage you to look at those and go through that. The other thing I want to tell you about is, again, to remind you of the retake protocol. If you have failed the exam and you're in our course, we certainly want to make sure that we've taken care of you. You'll be updated and you'll have course access immediately. And then if you send me your score sheet, I will make a video for you with my individualized recommendations. So I encourage you to do that. You don't have to do it, but if you don't send me the scores, I'm not going to be able to give you any feedback. So I encourage you to do that. California results will come out later this month. Same protocol there. We don't get much time. There's not much turnaround time into the February exam. So if you do not succeed on the July 2022 California exam, you're going to have to make a very quick transition into the February test if you want to take it. That won't be a problem with us. We'll put you into the course immediately, and we'll get that feedback to you as soon as we can. So that's where we stand. I think everybody that's sent me a score sheet at this point has received a video. If you haven't, check your spam folder or just reach out to June and she can get you a copy of that recording. All right, let me just share with you a little bit next about results that have come in from a couple of key jurisdictions and what's going on around the country. Now, the only major jurisdiction that we're waiting on now for bar exam results from July is California. But we did get the New York, Texas, and Georgia results since we've spoken to you last. In New York, the overall pass rate on the exam was 66%. But the pass rate for repeat bar takers was 23%. So this was pretty much in line with what we saw around the country, around 20 to 25% pass rate for repeat takers. Not a good number, to be sure, and we did better than that, way better, but definitely a difficult exam, and the numbers were lower generally. We will see much lower pass rates in February. That's not because the February test is harder. It simply reflects you've got more repeat bar takers, and that obviously brings the pass rate down. We got virtually identical results in Texas to New York. It was a 67% overall pass rate and a 23% retake pass rate. So again, very low retake pass rates, but the Texas UBE overall, first time takers, when you include them, obviously brings it up. And so you get this 67% overall. So when we're running under 70%, that's a reason to be concerned. And so we saw that in those two states. And then the third state I wanted to talk about was Georgia. It was very close as well, 65% overall pass rate. I don't have a retake rate reported to me yet. I imagine we'll get one shortly, but don't have it as of right now. So that's where we stand at this point in the exam results. Repeat bar takers, about 20 to 25%. First time and overall, about 60% to 70% in most of the country. And you can find all of the statistics from these jurisdictions in the NCBE's website, and that would be where I would recommend that you look if you're looking for a particular state. Now, at this point, virtually every state has reported in. So how did July go? Not good, not good. I'm really pleased for our students that passed. We just finished an interview with a New York UBE student, an attorney from Mexico, and we're going to get that posted and out in the next day or so. I think you're going to really like the interview that we did with Carlos. But these are tough times, and the exam is tough, and you got to take it seriously. And I think that's the message we've been giving for a long time. That continues to be our message now. All right. With that, I'm now going to jump into questions and comments and get through as many of them as I can. So let me start. And I got this question or some variant of it a number of times in the last couple of weeks. People wrote in saying, I feel like I should be farther along than I am, or where should I be at this stage? So right now, as we're talking, we're about 110 days to the February exam. So if you're sitting for the February 2023 exam, that's your time frame. If you're taking the July 2023, don't worry about it. You've got plenty of time. But for our February bar takers, where should you be at this point? And the answer is, it depends on when you started. If you are just coming into the course and you're getting underway, I would like to see you at about 20 hours a week of study, and that will take you through 1 or 2 units in the course pretty much every week. There is no specific benchmark at this stage, except that you should have started. So if you've got the course and you haven't been looking at it, this is the time to get started. If you're thinking about getting into the course and joining us, this is the time to do it. The clock is not our friend now. It is really our enemy. And so you need to get started and get along. In terms of feeling like you should be further along than you are, that's a very subjective thing. Where should you be? You should be at a point where you are making progress every day, and you should be studying pretty much every day at this point. If you're not doing, that's a problem. And so one of the things that I recommend to people when they have this sense of I should be further along is that they may be doing some things that are not terribly productive. They may be spending too long doing the reading or too long with mind mapping or note taking. Follow the guidelines in the assignments, really follow them. And I know many of you think those are just guidelines. If I need more time to read or more time to take notes or more time to do a lecture, I'll do it. Don't do that. We really want you to stay at those timeframes because they help get the material into the non-conscious quickly and keep you moving. But to the student that said, I feel like I should be further along, well, maybe, but you are where you are. And so just up your hours or shorten the time that you're spending on your assignments. So that would be my response there. Another question that we got several of people asked, this student said, I'm reaching out. I just purchased the virtual boot camp and I've got my regular bar course and I'm a new photo reader because of the virtual boot camp. So how do I go about doing both courses and incorporating the two into one? And that's a great question. The answer is when you first start out as a photo reader, there are 8 audio assignments you should do, and they're about an hour in length each. So my recommendation is that you do an hour each day of your study and devote it to photo reading, doing the lessons from Paul Sheely. While you're doing that, let's say you've got 3 hours booked for study for the day, put 1 hour into photo reading, 2 hours into your bar study, and continue to do that until you get through those 8 days and you get those lessons done. So you're not postponing your bar study. You're doing both at the same time. You're just giving an hour a day to the photo reading part of what you're doing. Also, I think it's important that you start to integrate your photo reading as quickly as you can into your study. So when you get through about lesson 4 or 5 of photo reading, go ahead and start applying that as you're working through the course. And you'll notice in your course, regardless of which course it is, we've got notes for photo readers at the bottom of every assignment. So you'll see those and that should be the time frame that you're following and working with. So that's how you should do it. Are you working on the two courses simultaneously? Yes, you are. And then, of course, virtual bootcamp is really more a series of resources than a specific course. So use that in various places. And if you're in virtual bootcamp or you're a bootcamp alum, just reach out and let us know. We've got a private community group for you specifically. It's a great place to ask questions like that. So make sure you check in with us and get into that virtual bootcamp private community group. Next question in the same framework. This student said, how long should it take me to mind map a complete outline from beginning to end for the first time? I've been working on crim law and I feel like I'm comprehending all the reading, but I'm putting in a lot of hours every day and I'm feeling the need to advance faster. I worry about time management and not being able to cover the review process at the end of the syllabus. I wouldn't worry too much about the review process right now in the end of the syllabus. We got a long time to go there. But my advice would be very similar to what I said earlier. You should be following the time limits and the timeframes that are in each assignment, and you should be really disciplined about doing that work. Now, when it comes to mind mapping, um, it would take hours to do a complete mind map, but that's not what you need to do when you first read the assignment or read the subject. What I want you to do is a short mind map. You'll see that in the assignments, we'll tell you how long to spend doing the mind map. And really what we want you to do is take advantage of that time that you would have spent doing hardcore reading, line for line, word for word. If it was a 3-hour reading assignment, and you photo read in 15 minutes, that would give you 2 hours and 45 minutes to do your mind map. We suggest a minimum of 90 minutes, but up to that 2 hours and 45 just to get the mind map done. But that's the start of it. It's not a complete mind map. Remember that mind mapping is like an all-you-can-eat buffet. You keep coming back to it and adding to it as you're moving through the course. So don't worry about getting it complete. Just get the mind map out there and then begin to work from that position forward and add to it after the essays, add to it after the MBEs, add to it after the lectures. So you continue to build and work through the mind map that way. So I think when people are taking too long, it's because they're trying to put too much information in. You will get faster and better with practice, but I think that's part of the key. The other thing I want to just say about time management is that we have a time management course with one of our group coaches, Brianna. It is a really valuable course. I just finished a review with a successful New York UBE applicant, and he had failed the bar the first time because he just ran out of time. He didn't have enough time to study. And so he got onto that system and the workshop with Brianna, and he talked about in the interview that it made all the difference to him to have her assist him in putting together a schedule and figuring out how to get ready in time. And he did that. And he raised his score 13 or points past easily. And I would encourage all of you to check out the workshop with her. So that's what I see in terms of time management. I would say get with Brianna. Don't worry about the review. We got a long time before we get there. Next question we got, student said, I see that there's a writing course that you give. Should I take that writing course in the class before I start my first video session with you, Jackson? And the answer is yes, it's useful to go through the section of your course where we talk about how to write essays and then submit your first piece of work to me and we'll talk about it. I think that's better than burning a session with me to explain what's already in the course to you. So I want to make sure you understand the writing concept, the basic mechanics. And so I would go ahead and do that element in your online course, then do your first session with me. I think that will be helpful and cost effective. Next question, a student said, I'm still trying to get the hang of photo reading. I'm trying to take a few minutes away from the material so I can recharge, but I don't know if I like photo reading yet or not. And this is a pretty common thing that I hear from students when they're starting out with photo reading. There's an expectation that photo reading is going to be a photographic memory and it'll be Shazam. It's just in your brain and it's there and you remember it all. Couldn't be anything more different. Photo reading is a whole mind reading system. It reads into the non-conscious. So your conscious brain doesn't get anything that's satisfying. In fact, your conscious brain will be screaming at you that it was a rip-off, a scam, and you should never do it, except for the fact that it works and, you should do it. But our conscious brains tell us that because they're not being fed anything. So when you're doing photo reading, it's really important that you follow the steps, that you prepare and preview. So you're telling your non-conscious what it is you're looking for. Then you actually do the physical act of reading, the photo flipping. But when you do post view and activation, those last two steps, that's really where you start to draw that material out of the non-conscious. So taking a little bit of time after you've photo read and just jotting down some words, some phrases, some ideas, some questions that come to mind, whatever they might be, whatever is in your brain after you've done the photo reading, that's a really important step because it starts to draw some of that information. And then when you start to mind map the information, that's when you begin with the book open or the lecture on or the text of the lecture or the answer explanations that you've got. When you start to mind map those things, that's when you really begin to see the beauty of the course and how it works for you and how you can add photo reading into what you're doing. So give it some time. Paul talks about knobs. Notice it, own it, play with it, stay with it. And I think that's a really good way to think about this. You've got to own what you're doing. I think that's what this student is doing. They're saying, hey, I'm owning it. I just don't know if it's working or not. But you need to play with it. Continue to work with it. Don't give up. It tends to be more like a dimmer switch than an on-off switch. That is, you don't go from nothing to 100% right away. You build up the skill and it gets better and better. And the more times you photo read, the better it will get. The more you add to the mind map, the better it will get. So that's playing with it. And then finally stay with it. Whether you think it works or not, it works. Just like gravity, just a bunch of the internet. And you don't have to know how it works. You just have to do it. And as you continue to do it, you'll see the results. And so I encourage you to do that. That's where we are, I think, with photo reading. Just give it a chance and let it work for you. Next question. Student said, I'm in the basic success program. I've postponed taking the bar a few times. Last time I came close, I failed by only 7 points. And I'm going to plan on taking the bar in July of 2023 and take 3 months off of work. Okay. So what are the different coaching packages that you would recommend in that situation? First of all, I think it's great that you get to take 3 months off of work. However, I want to say you should be studying now, even if it's only 5 hours a week. I think it's important to have that continuity. If you're a July 2023 student, you should be studying at least a little bit. So don't do nothing and then try and blow it up over 3 months. Try and do a little bit as you're going along. I think that will be helpful to you. In terms of the different coaching packages and the costs, I would recommend the 8-call package with me. That's 8 half-hour Zoom calls, and we record those. We take the work that you've sent in, we assign work, you send it in, we put it up on the screen, we talk about it, we mark it up, we engage in a discussion, and a half-hour call, one-on-one. That's what I would recommend. If you're in the basic course, I'd upgrade to what we call Basic Plus, which is 8 calls with me. I also have a 12-call package, and you might want to have that, but either way, I think that's the way to go when you're trying to start out. And by the way, when you're close to passing, when you're 7 points away, which is not very far away, the temptation is to do what you've been doing and just do more of it. I want to caution you against that. It's the same principle that we say to people coming to us from the big box bar reviews. You have to do something different. So if you were in our course and you came up short, you have to add some resources. You've got to change some things in the way you're studying. If you weren't a photo reader, maybe you want to be a photo reader. If you were a photo reader and you weren't successful, you want to look at what you were doing and how to mind map and how to add those tools. All of those things will help you, I think, to improve what you're doing. But just doing more of the same rarely works. So you've got to really be cognizant of what it is that you're having trouble with and then adding to that, which is one of the reasons why if you're in our course and you're not successful, which is not common, but if that happens, I'm going to do the video for you because I want to make sure that we're doing something differently. So you're not just repeating those errors over and over again. So that's where I would see the process going for this particular student. Get started now for the July exam, add the coaching as soon as you can so that we can start looking at your work and giving you the pointers that you need to be on target as you study. Okay, next question came from a boot camper. I don't know if it's a virtual or a live boot camper, and they ask about the memory supercharger recording. Is that enough that was in the boot camp, or should we buy the parallel pack for the bar? So let's talk about this for just a minute. Paraliminals, for those of you that don't know, are audio recordings in which you have 2 separate channels being brought in one ear. You've got the left ear goes to the right hemisphere of the brain. The right ear goes to the left hemisphere of the brain. And the paraliminals are designed to deal with specific problem areas that you might have and resolve them by listening to a recording for 20 to 30 minutes and doing that multiple times over a period of a few weeks. We curated a set of 16 of these paraliminal recordings on things like stress management, sleeping well and waking refresh, belief, focus, and concentration. Even one that's called a 10-minute supercharger, which is just a 10-minute paraliminal that's just designed to get you going. It's a great one to do during the breaks in the bar exam, for example. In any event, we curated these with learning strategies and we got a special price for them. So to answer the student's question, the memory supercharger and the 10-minute supercharger are both great recordings and they are in the virtual boot camp. I would suggest adding the Paraliminal pack because it just gives you so many more options and so many more titles to go through. And you can check that link and see all the titles. I do Paraliminals typically 2 to 4 times a day. I've been doing them for more than a decade, and I find them to be incredibly helpful and very easy. You just plug them in, and I typically lie down or sit in a comfortable chair and I'll fall asleep for a few minutes, and then it just wakes me up. And it's a great way to get things accomplished and change problem areas or blocks that you might have. We have another photo reading question here. This student says, I am a photo reader, but it feels like the mind maps are slowing me down. Any go faster suggestions? Okay, so like the other question that we had, in this situation, I would just try to only get the basics of the subject in the first iteration of the mind map, and then go back and add to it as you're doing your question practice, as you're doing the lectures and the other material. Now, another go faster methodology is to use BarMaps. This is a product that we offer that's already got the initial levels of mind maps built for you in, and then you can either duplicate that and edit it, or you could print it out and keep it the way it is, or you could just use it as the beginning of your own mind maps. But it is a way to really speed you up. I think the go faster suggestion with the mind maps is just put a little bit in first time through and just get it out of the table of contents. There's actually a video in your course about mind maps that shows you how to build that first mind map. And I would encourage you to take a look at it. It's in your introductory materials. Next question, can we download a printable version of the written materials and use that rather than print books from Amazon? And the answer is yes. You could print out any of the PDFs that we've got in the course. That's why we do it that way. The digital books are not for printing out, but the PDFs can be printed. And there's a PDF for virtually every book and every assignment in the course. So you can always grab those and use that instead of printed books. We also know that getting printed books right now to China, for example, we can't do it. I think that's what June told me the other day. So there are some restrictions. So if you're not in the US and you want printed books, make sure you reach out to us before you place your order so we can check to see if we can actually do it. And then the second thing is, if you're in the US and you want to print books, it's taking us about 7 to 10 days to get the books printed on demand by Amazon and then shipped and received by you. So you've got enough time to do that for February, but you should be doing it. There will come a point where we say, don't order print books. Typically for the February exam, that happens about the first week in January. So you've still got time to do it if you want, but that you should get on it sooner rather than later. A student wrote that they were reviewing MBE question answering techniques, and they identified 3 of the techniques that I've talked about in the course. The multiple pass technique, which means going through each time and just doing the first easy questions and then the harder ones and then the harder ones still. That's one technique. The second is the elimination technique, in which you're working through a problem and you're eliminating wrong answers or answers that would seem to be just ridiculous, and then narrowing down and guessing. And then finally, selective intuition, which is where you read the problem, you preview an answer before you look at the answer choices, and then select based on that preview. So the student's question is, what's the hierarchy in which these methods are to be employed? It's a great question. And the hierarchy is first to use selective intuition. This is the model that we want you to be using. We think it's the best way to get through the material and to answer the questions in about 90 seconds each. So that's your goal, is to answer a question in 90 seconds. If you can't answer it in that time frame, statistically, you're not going to succeed. It's just like watching you come off of a cliff. At 90 to 100 seconds is when we get the most correct answers. After that framework, typically after 100 seconds, it drops below 25%, which is weird. So you don't have much of a chance after 90 seconds. Selective intuition first. Now, in terms of the other 2 techniques, the multiple pass and elimination, I would not use the elimination technique until you have done selective intuition. And if you're really struggling then with the two answers that seem to be close based on your selective intuition, then you could do the elimination technique within that and answer. In terms of the multiple pass technique, I've really been ambivalent about this. There is some wisdom to just going through and doing all the easy questions, getting all those done, and then going back and doing the next set of harder questions and so on. But with selective intuition, I think you should find most of the questions relatively doable. At 90 seconds, you'll be done in 2.5 hours out of a 3-hour exam. So I think you've got plenty of opportunities there to get through all of that. This process of going through and doing multiple pass really came when people were having trouble getting through the exam, and we wanted to make sure they got all the easy questions done first. So you can experiment around a little bit with it, but my suggestion would be to ignore it and just do question 1 to 100 in the order that you see them and work through it systematically in that way. All right, great question though. I appreciate it and love to have people thinking about it that way. All right. Got a comment from a student. I kind of like this one. They said, I sound like a 3-year-old kid, but I get it now. I've been working on the lesson with the essay writing, and it makes so much sense. I read the essays and I did 3 others, and they say, oh my gosh, conflict pairs are clearly the way to go. I had to celebrate this. Yeah, that's really good stuff. And I'm delighted when people give me that feedback. And of course, we've had feedback from students that passed in July who've said that FLA writing style made all the difference in the world. And we really want you to employ it. It works in all the jurisdictions. It's not the only way to write, to be sure, but it is a clear, concise, and relatively easy way to write. And once you get into the habit of it and the framework, it just goes pretty easily for most people. So this is a good thing to be using and working through. You'll find the writing workshop early on in your course. Make sure you do that. And then if you're really struggling after you've done it, then look at adding coaching with me to be able to get the assistance that you need on your writing that's one-on-one. I've got only one question left here. This student said, I'm planning to take the July bar. I signed up for the study materials back in September. Are there updated materials? And will the materials that I bought in September be good for even the February 2023 exam? And will I be getting updated material for the bar date that I'm currently preparing? It's a great question. We update our materials all the time. In fact, we just added today the essays for the UBE. We'll be adding the MPTs from July as well. Where you're going to see those updates will be in something called the Update Center. It's in Unit 1 in your course. And there we post every time we make a change to your course, update a book, add a lecture, do something that's a little bit different. So you can always check that and see how you're doing. But the truth of the bar exam is that not a lot happens that's different from one exam to the next. And so you don't have to ditch everything and start all over again. In fact, the dirty secret in the bar exam is that, and I think the big boxes still do this, they've really got the same book with 2 different covers. So they've got the book and they put on, let's say, a blue cover in July, and then take all those covers off of any remaining books and they put a red cover on them for February. Same book, same material. Most of the bar stuff doesn't change all that much from year to year, week to week. And so you don't need to be worried about the latest decisions unless you're in Florida, which did the craziness in this last exam, but we got you covered there if that should happen again. So basically my answer to this student, do you need to update your study materials? No, we will update them with questions. That's mostly where it comes from, and you don't need to do a whole lot there. One other note I do want to make about updating materials, however, and this is something that's imposed on us by the bar examiners. As of December 31st, 2022, the bar examiners are retiring about 400 MBE questions. Now, I've fought for years to keep them alive, and I did. I actually kept them available to everybody because I continued to lobby for them. But now the time has come, and about 400 of those questions are going to go away. So what that means is that on December 31st, January 1st, we will put up a new set of books for the MBE that will have those 400 questions removed. We have to do that. There's no choice. So if you want to see all the questions, whether you're online or in a digital book or a PDF, you should get to those before December 31st and look through. And most of these 400 questions don't come in the full-length tests. They're part of the initial 100 to 175 questions we've got in each subject. So make sure you get through those by the end of December if you can. If you can't, it's no big loss. The reason the examiners are retiring the questions is they just don't like them anymore. They don't think that they're appropriate for the scope and the approach of the exam today, which is fine with me. I think that they're good teaching questions, but they're certainly not in the form that we would expect to see in the current bar exam. So we'll tell you more about that as we get closer, but just want to give everybody a heads up today about that. All right, June, you want to jump back in here for a minute and let's just see where we're at. Hey, we got anything in the chat box or are we quiet?
No, everybody's been quiet today.
Okay. I'm assuming that's because they're all working hard and they're doing great stuff.
That's right now. So I think they're just taking notes and going to implement it into their studies.
But I just wanted to say, as we start to turn into the February exams now, 110 days, people need to start getting their bearings and start to study. And I know you do a lot with mindset coaching, but this is the time to get your head on straight. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. You can read all the tools, all the books, all the information. But if your mindset isn't right, you won't get very far. You'll get overwhelmed. You'll feel like you're not moving forward when you are. And so that's why we offer mindset group coaching. It's a great way to check in, talk to your peers, get your fears out, let somebody else see what you're going through a different lens is always helpful. I like to say on my group coaching calls, I'm just holding up the mirror, but it's really good to have that affirmation and sense of community that you're not alone. So attend one of the group coaching calls. Don't isolate right now. Need to be with your peers who know what you're going through. And that's so very helpful. And then again, if you want to go even deeper, I offer a one-to-one mindset coaching, which if you've ever been on Amanda's call, she's amazing. She was one of my one-to-one coaching students and she blew her bar exam out of the water. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, you had a few of the July students too, where it was very successful.
I did. I'm just not going to talk out of school and say names. I mentioned Amanda because she's one of our group coaches now because she did so well. But everybody else might not want me to just blast it all over the internet.
All right. That's fair enough. Listen, it's great to have all of you here today. Thank you for being with us. If you're watching or listening later on replay, glad to have you. June, thank you very much for being here. Safe travels next week. I will be here on my own, terrified, but I will do it. And great to have everybody here. Have a great study week. Stay healthy and safe. Make sure that you're working and getting a little bit done at least every day. And with that, we're going to sign off and we will see you all next week. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening and watching the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers at celebrationbarreview.com.